So, episode 3 of My Hero Academia Season 7 is out, and let's just say that in this video, we get the reveal of who the UA traitor was, and you will never guess who it is. Unless you read the manga, then you know exactly who it is, to which I will say, shut up and let the anime onlys have their moment. So, let's dive into the episode. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to do my review for My Hero Academia Season 7, Episode 3, titled Villain. And yes, this is going to be my review / breakdown for this episode, and I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, what I liked, what I disliked, and what it means for the story of My Hero Academia that we now know who the traitor is. And I'm also going to talk about how this section of the season is adapted in comparison to the manga. So let's dive right into it and really break down and review this episode. And to start off, the title of this episode, Villains, actually derives its name from the same manga chapter in the manga chapter 336 titled Villain. And this episode pretty much covers from chapters 335 in page 11 forward all the way up to chapter 338, very specifically at the double page spread of page 4 and 5. And while I typically show the manga panels in this episode, I'm not going to do it for now because it reveals who the traitor is, and we're going to save that for later. But when it comes to the episode as a whole, the beginning of the episode just starts off with a more proper recap of the past 2 episodes of the Star and Stripe fight with Tomura Shigaraki, or Tomura for one, and how he eventually lost and how the heroes have to get stronger to actually go against him. Where we have the opening, but after the opening, we actually are going to cut over to what happened after the fight with Star and Stripe on the villain side, where we see All For One comforting Tomura, or Tomura for one, while he's in the state of wanting to destroy, as he brings up the information that he's very much in sync with the other me, or the other self inside of Tomura. And as we have Toya, who's very impatient in this moment, is really questioning what's going on with All For One and why they aren't going out and attacking immediately, where we get a very much better understanding of All For One and his ideology and his practices, and how he has multiple plans or multiple routes in play to reach his end goal. And we get this information conveyed to us with a very neat animation that is derived from a similar panel in the manga. And how he brings up this idea that he has friends in different places that are helping to achieve his goal. As we have Tomura using search, zooming in on Hagakure? Spoilers, Hagakure is very much not the traitor. This is a red herring. But it does tie into the title of the chapter, which ironically enough, in the manga, this scene ties into the next chapter, which is actually the name of the episode, as well as that manga chapter 336. And what is very interesting about this part of the episode is that a lot of what we get to see is anime original scenes, or it's scenes that are expanded upon that were seen in the manga in smaller background images that are expanded here. For example, we get to see in the manga, we see that many characters, specifically Ojiro as well as Sato, are beating up on Kirishima. But in the anime, we see that they add Shoji to the mix, and it's done in a very more unique and dynamic way. As well as we see the scene of Bakugo and Deku fighting it out, and that being expanded, while also hinting at a little bit more how Bakugo's cluster works, which was not necessarily shown in the manga. As well as we get to see very much more added on scenes, such as Sero and Tokoyami fighting, as well as Shoto using their birds to amplify their quirk. But we also get additional scenes not seen in the manga, such as Momo and Kaminari, which may actually tie back to the scene that we saw earlier in the series during the summer camp arc, as well as Uraraka and Furappi using their special move that we first saw during the overhaul arc, as Ida is trying to avoid all of this as well. We pretty much get to see all of the heroes in Class 1A training except for 2. And that is something that was similar in the manga, but expanded upon in the anime. And what is also pretty much ripped straight from the manga and placed in the anime is the explanation for why the heroes have to wait and why they can't just go after the villains. And that there are 3 major reasons why, explained by both Bakugo as well as Momo. 1 is that fighting them is very much impossible. 2, Tomura's body is incomplete, so they'd rather wait than act immediately. And 3, they're the ones who's going to make the first attack, which is something that is brought up in this chapter and in this episode that is actually concluded more towards the end of the episode and within the next chapter, relatively speaking. So it's cool that even though they are adapting it very much verbatim from the manga to the anime, that they also were able to adapt the transitions from manga chapter to manga chapter in the episode in a singular unit. But with that, we do get some comedic scenes with Ida and Uraraka as we actually pan over and cut over to Hagakure, where we realize what she was doing this entire time, following and tailing the UA trader. Where we hear the UA trader's parents talking in the background, where it's revealed that the UA trader was actually Aoyama Hyuga. And with this, we pretty much get an explanation straight out of the manga and the anime, explaining how they got the quirk from All For One, how if they knew the type of person that All For One was, they wouldn't have done it, and how his parents pretty much did it for him because they didn't want to make him feel alone, didn't want Aoyama to feel, for the most part, like an outsider, because we get the reveal that he was born quirkless. And that Aoyama understands the situation very much and thought that when All For One was defeated, that he could have lived a more normal life, but that he very much regrets the decisions that he's making, but still would rather go through with them because he wants to make sure that his parents are safe. And it's during this moment where Hagakure panics about learning this new information, where it's finally revealed to Deku that Aoyama is the traitor, as well as the major reveal of what Hagakure looks like when she's no longer invisible. However, if you were watching the anime already spoiled it for you, as well as spoiling who the UA trader was within that same scenes in the opening, where in the same moment where you see Hagakure's face, you could actually see Aoyama prior to that moment, hinting to the fact that he was the UA trader. And how it's done pretty much in this episode is like how it's done in the chapter of Aoyama running away, recognizing that he has done some very heinous stuff and still acting upon it instead of changing for the better, firing a laser that Hagakure is able to deflect because she's made of a material of her body that reflects light. There's also some scenes that I want to bring up that are anime original when it involves Aoyama Hyuga, and how it kind of changes the perspective of Aoyama in certain scenes where we don't necessarily see him react or emote. Very much specifically during the time where we saw the rest of Class 1A trying to rescue Deku, where Aoyama really didn't say anything or play a big part in it, even though he is one of the characters closely associated with Deku. But what this episode shows is kind of like how Aoyama was feeling during those perspectives that we didn't necessarily see him. And I really like how these scenes really emphasize how Aoyama is feeling in the moment and how he feels ostracized and separated from everyone else due to the actions that he took about being a part of the evil schemes of All For One. I really like how the anime added these scenes into the anime that were not necessarily in the manga. Also, something else the anime does is slightly expand upon the moment that Aoyama and his parents are running away, where we get to see Aoyama's thought process in this moment, and it's paired with a sort of flashback to Aoyama's mother and father getting married, having a child via Aoyama, and really confirming the idea that they really cared for Aoyama and that they never intended for him to be involved with All For One or to be involved in potentially being a villain. What they wanted was best not for them, but what they believed would be best for Aoyama. And that is something that I'm glad that they added, because it really adds to the characterization of these two parents, and really showing that they were coming from a place of love, and showing that they were coming from a place of love, not hate, a place of being selfless, not selfish. And with that, Hagakure was able to prevent Aoyama from doing any more damage, where we have Deku capturing them, cutting over to a scene where you have the police and all of the members of Class 1A reacting to the fact that Aoyama was the traitor. Many of them are very much in disbelief and cannot comprehend that he was willing to do this. Where from here, this is where we get a better understanding for why they did it and how they really didn't have a choice, especially from Aoyama's father's mouth, about how All For One pretty much forced them into the situation where if they don't help him, they die. And that they really do not have a way of communicating with All For One, and that only All For One can communicate with them. And how Aoyama believes himself to be just evil and a traitor and just the purest version of a villain due to the actions that he took that put his fellow classmates in danger. And how he is the worst type of villain in the world, to which, luckily enough, Deku is able to interject and pretty much explain to Aoyama that even though he's scared and afraid, that he still risked his life to save his friends, even when it came to potentially facing death. And I will say that this entire section of the episode is very emotional and gave me the chills, especially with small added informations that were not necessarily in the manga, which really adds to this moment being a lot more emotional, especially when it comes to some of the visuals as well as some of the music used in these moments. And how All For One in this moment juxtaposes what's happening with Aoyama, comparing Aoyama to more or less a disposable object. But the episode pretty much concludes with the idea that this disposable object may be the reasoning why All For One gets defeated. And how All For One treated Lady Nagant this way and treating Aoyama this way as well is eventually going to backfire on him. And we see this come to fruition as we get to the end of the episode, where the heroes are more or less in a moment of like wanting to help Aoyama, but because Aoyama is a criminal, the heroes, or more specifically the police, try to silence him on the grounds that because with Lady Nagant, All For One had an explosive device of a quirk instilled inside of her, that it may be inside of Aoyama if he speaks too much. But even in this moment, Aoyama is still questioning what he can do and if he can actually be of help to the heroes, to which Deku brings up the fact that he can still be helpful and that he can still be a hero, which rings a tone with characters such as Bakugo as well as Kaminari, who reflects on what Bakugo said about how the villains are the ones going to make the first move. And they come to a conclusion that potentially they could use Aoyama to force the hands of All For One to move the way that they want. And that he may be the only one that could be capable of tricking All For One by being the hero that he may want to be as the episode ends. And I will say that this is a pretty emotional episode and something that we've been waiting almost years for. And I think personally, with this part of the episode, this reveal was done extremely well. It could have been done better, but I think the execution in the anime, as well as with the voice acting, as well as with the music and some of the animation choices, really adds to this moment more in the anime than we really got in the manga. But yeah, this is kind of my review / breakdown. They really didn't change a whole lot, but they didn't really need to make this scene hit for you anime onlys and potentially even the manga readers who may have been a little bit more lukewarm on this chapters when they came out. But yeah, let me ask you, how did you feel about this episode? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!